George Gershwin composed a very famous work titled Rhapsody in Blue. Many people know it, either from United Airlines commercials or Fantasia 2000 made by Disney. I personally know the piece through Fantasia, but also experienced it with my marching band. We played this tune for one of our marching shows one year, but everyone knows the piece very well. But why should we care about George Gershwin and his work? George Gershwin, birth name Jacob Gershwin, was born shortly after the span of this time period of this class. He was one of America's greatest composers. He composed a good deal of his works alongside his brother and lyricist, Ira Gershwin. He was quite famous for his Broadway compositions, as well as his contributions to the modern Western music area through his orchestral compositions. Gershwin's most famous works consist of Strike Up the Band, An America in Paris, Concerto in F, Prelude No. 1, and Broadway compositions such as Porgy and Bess, and Of the I Sing, and I Got Rhythm. Fun fact, Gershwin was also known by the people of his day to be quite the athlete. He spent quite a bit of time playing baseball with his friends. He also spent some of his pastime creating paintings and making art beyond the musical sphere. But how did Rhapsody in Blue come about? The creation of Gershwin's masterwork of Rhapsody in Blue was actually a surprise to him and his cohorts. On January 3rd, 1924, on a late night, Gershwin's brother Ira, both to their surprises, read in the New York Tribune that Gershwin's piece would be premiering for Paul Whiteman's Royal Orchestra in a pivotal event under the title of An Experiment in Modern Music at New York's Aeolian Concert Hall on February 12th of that same year. He began writing this piece on January 7th, shortly after he figured out, in 1924. He wrote feverishly and tirelessly. When traveling the train to Boston from New York to rehearse his Broadway compositions with the orchestra, which he would have to open days prior to Rhapsody in Blue's big debut, he, in his inspiration, heard the steely rhythms and rattly bang of the train moving on the tracks, and he finally figured out the major theme and feel of his new composition. He knew what he wanted his piece to sound like. The greatest musicians can find music in the depths of the loudest noise. Gershwin allegedly named the piece American Rhapsody, but when George and Ira saw a painting named Nocturne in Blue and Green, painted by James Abbott McNeill Whistler, in their inspiration, the two brothers landed on a good name for the piece. They decided to name the piece Rhapsody in Blue. Gershwin happened to already have quite the following beforehand, but after Rhapsody in Blue, his popularity only began to grow up and out from there. An American in Paris, which happens to be Gershwin's second most recognized orchestral composition, also gained quite a bit of recognition as well. This piece was, as well as Rhapsody in Blue, a pivotal because it was among the first pieces for a large ensemble to contribute jazz influences in a classical or orchestral music setting. This allowed the unification of sorts for jazz artists and classical artists to, be unified and create great music under the works of Gershwin. Gershwin's immediate successors are Leonard Bernstein, responsible for all the music in West Side Story in its entirety, Stephen Sondheim, responsible for Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, and Into the Woods, and William Bolcom, responsible for Circus Overture and Rag Tango. They have furthered Gershwin's ideas and music as a whole in America, with the most pivotal to me being conductor, composer, and activist, Leonard Bernstein. It is clear that Gershwin's impact still stands today, and for me, as a future music educator, we can still play his pieces today, and look at the context and history that coincides with his life and work. looking at that history has been an enriching experience for the continuation of my studies.